I think it would be a fair characterization to say that the British Columbia provincial election was Premier David Eby and the BC NDPs to lose, and they have tried their darndest to lose it as hard as possible. They were up in the polls 28% a year ago. That was assisted a bit by the opposition to them being split up between the BC Conservatives and the BC United. But still, David Eby hasn't moderated a bit since that time. If he did, this would actually probably be an easy election for him. But he exposed himself as a complete radical, unwilling to back off of safe supply, unwilling to budge on the carbon tax, belittling anybody who wasn't an environmental alarmist, and pretending that that was going to be a winning election campaign in a province that doesn't like how the NDP have performed on any of the major issues at all. It's gotten so bad for Premier Eby, he could lose his own seat in Vancouver Point-Grey, and this is not unprecedented. Christy Clark lost this seat to David Eby in the past. It's a swing riding that can go either way, and usually the leader adds a little bit of, gravitas to the campaign in that riding. The problem for Eby is he doesn't have gravitas at all, and nobody trusts him. It's not a 10% chance he could lose. It's a 34% chance he could lose. 66 to 34 in Vancouver Point-Grey. It is only rated as a toss-up right now, slightly leaning NDP. Because if the polls tighten up even 1 or 2% more in Vancouver, Point-Grey is probably 100% in play for the Conservatives, and it's probably a literal 50-50 at that point. David Eby, if he just, again, I keep emphasizing it, just, lowered taxes a little bit, just said, no, we're going to scrap the safe supply program, easily would cruises to victory. He is so much of a protester, so much of an activist before a responsible politician that he couldn't help himself and he could never admit to being wrong. He has the same problems as Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. I am a conservative. I'm obviously a conservative. But if Trudeau ever admitted to making a mistake, it would actually help him in the polls. David Eby and Justin Trudeau are pompous know-it-alls. At the same time, everyone can see them doing everything wrong. On top of that, David Eby is just a weak personality. His party has no momentum, and he has no ability to generate momentum. Here's him talking about healthcare in Canada and British Columbia. He doesn't give you the feeling that he is fully in command. He always talks like he's asking permission for himself to do things. It's weird.
Healthcare is such an issue across Canada and in many different jurisdictions around the world that are seeing similar trends. The difference is here in BC, we are doing things differently, and we're taking this issue head on to make sure we're able to provide the support that people need.
I'm not going to make you suffer through the rest of this, but this was an actual campaign video the BC NDP uploaded, that this was going to be something that's going to make you like David Eby, think he's competent. He sounds weak. Also, he's just lying. He tries to go in there and say that we're hiring nurses and doctors faster than anyone else is in Canada. They're not. They're not. Plus, all the nurses and doctors that they fired and pretended to let come back to work, they're not coming back. Why would they trust them anymore? The BC government is duplicitous under the NDP. And we've had 2 more polls come out recently, and I want to go over some of those with you today, as well as the Main Street Research model, which I think is very interesting. I want to show you some of their stats. They actually show the race in Vancouver Point-Grey within, I believe, 1.5% between the Conservatives and the BC NDP. If you are in Vancouver, please go and volunteer for Paul Ranchford's campaign in that riding. If you don't want to drive all the way there, at least join another BC Conservative campaign. Door knock once in this campaign. At least donate $100 to the BC Conservatives. I have a link below to donate to the Abbotsford South riding. We're taking in as much money as possible and distributing it out to the winnable ridings. If you donate $100, you get 75% of your money back. Obviously, this is only applying to people who live in BC. But before I get to those polls, one, again, reminder, like, share, and subscribe, all that good stuff. This is a podcast that had all 3 of the major leaders on to talk about their issues. Sonia Furstenau, John Rustad, and David Eby. I think it's really telling that John Rustad's not a massive personality. I really like John Rustad. Very straightforward, very blunt on the issues. He very much is goals-oriented. And that sounds a bit vague, but I mean in the sense that he's somebody who's saying, taxes are too high, let's lower taxes. He's not going to be the type of guy, if he's premier, to say, oh, well, I want to balance the budget first, and in 2 years, we'll see if it's safe. He'll just do it. That very much Ralph Klein, Blaine Higgs kind of energy, which I like. And that doesn't mean big personality. That means focus. And in this podcast interviews, Sonia Furstenau, I give it to her. It was only 9 hours ago when I took the screenshot, although most of your views should be coming in the first 5 hours. Sonia Furstenau, her interview has 213 views. John Rust had 22,000. And David Eby, who has had longer with this interview sitting out there for the world to watch 2 weeks ago, has 3,700 views. Nobody cares what David Eby wants to say. Everyone, you actually look at David Eby and you know what his position is. It is the position of a weak socialist college student who thinks that late stage capitalism is the reason why their Uber Eats driver hasn't gotten to their house yet. This is the type of person that David Eby is. He represents college town progressives, and that's not a winning coalition for a provincial election. Right now, there are demographic groups who don't vote conservative. Federally, provincially, they never vote conservative. They're voting conservative this election. South Asians are mostly going to be voting conservative based on the Main Street research numbers I have here. I'll just pull up the Main Street research numbers. I think they're pretty interesting. It'll be a little bit hard for me to organize it here just simply because it's small text, but I'll try and zoom in a lot. But let's go through education right now. David Eby and the BC Conservatives, there's a lot of, David Eby, BC NDP, John Rust, and the BC Conservatives. Then you have Furstenau and the Greens. And this poll does have a lot of undecided. Undecided, having this many undecided voters, 17.7%, that's death for David Eby. You do not want a significant portion of people being undecided if you're the incumbent. The incumbent advantages is that people just default to voting for you. They've done a fine job. Vote for them again. If 17% of people are undecided basically a month before the election, dude, you're screwed. You're so screwed. How people haven't decided if they like you or not yet? I know a lot of people don't know who David Eby is, but they know who the BC NDP are. And some people probably still think John Horgan's the premier, but nobody likes them. Everyone knows what the BC NDP stand for. The people who are undecided want to check out what the BC Conservatives are about, or maybe they're disaffected NDPers who are going to go look at what the Greens have to offer. But overall, undecideds are going to be splitting for the Conservatives. This is just how undecideds work in an election like this that I would say is more of a referendum. Do you like the government? This is why I tell people all the times when I'm door knocking. Do you like the current government and David Eby, or do you not? Because if you don't, you can't then be scared into saying, well, the Conservatives could be radically different. Yes, we need radically different. We need somebody to say that taxes need to go down, regulations need to go down, stop indoctrinating kids in school, all this kind of stuff. Get rid of safe supply. So let's get into this high school and high school education. Sorry, trying to get to the right page here. Right now, they are winning these basically at the same rates. 22% of high school or less are the undecideds. That's bad because usually high school is going to be splitting conservative. A lot of people who work in trades who probably earn far more than people who've gone to university, but they work more like, on farms. They work in the lumber industry. They work, as other types of professions that didn't require school. Those people are more predisposed. Blue collar people are going to be going to the Conservatives. So I guarantee we're going to see the Conservatives start to edge past probably even 45, 46% with the high school or less crowd. College, 45% conservative. Now, that's the reason why they're winning college students by so much is that college, you have a lot of technical universities, a lot of technical schools teaching like plumbing and teaching electricians. That's where the Conservatives are getting their vote from. This is a demographic. I guarantee you, back in 2020, John Horgan was winning them because John Horgan came off, like, to put it very simply, bluntly, a man's man. David Eby does not come off like a man's man. He doesn't seem like somebody you want to get a beer with or anything. He seems like somebody who complains at you for having a picnic in the park because there's like some city ordinance nobody's ever heard of before. Now we get to university, and this is where one is proving university is a little bit of a scam. There's a lot of people with arts degrees who are going to be voting for the NDP. I don't think I'm alienating them by saying that. They're not watching the show, people with sociology degrees. 42% NDP, 35% conservative, but they're also the least undecided, which means that all of the support that David Eby is currently getting, there's not really more of this group for him left to win. And if they even split 50-50 conservative and NDP, the Conservatives are doing well. Again, $50,000 or less, those are very undecided, naturally, because they're not doing so hot in this economy. The only people who are more decided are the people in the $100,000+ demographic. And make no mistake, a lot of them are voting NDP still more than the 75,000 crowd, because you get to have some luxury beliefs there, but also they are still actually leading towards the Conservatives. The only people currently being won by the NDP are lower income, but they're also heavily undecided. And I guarantee those undecided people are not going towards the NDP, or they would have already done it. These are more so probably NDP stalwarts, a lot of teachers, a lot of people in unionized labor. Now, I want to quickly pull out of this a bit, and I want to go back to the data on ethnicity, because this one is interesting, especially among, let's look at the regionals quickly. I'll just list off the numbers here. I think they're pretty good to see. Eby is currently doing well, as you would expect, on Vancouver Island, but Rested's still winning 33% of Vancouver Island. A lot of other polls were only showing the Conservatives at 28, 30. If they can get this number from 33.6 to a 38, I think they're doing very well. 12% undecided. Rest of BC is 22.5. This is more reflective of the fact that nobody likes the NDP, and maybe they're not yet fully aware that the Conservatives are the only party they can vote for. But Vancouver is tight. Vancouver is very tight. It is not acting like the default, like orange city that you would normally expect, because the NDP have frankly ticked off a lot of demographic groups. So let's just quickly look at this. Some of the demographic groups are way too small to poll here. And it is just true, even though BC is actually a very, very diverse ethnically province. And except you'll notice that Middle Eastern voters, that South Asian voters, a lot of these demographics, even if they're like 20%, 15% of certain cities, they're like a tiny minority of people who answered a poll, because that's just not the culture to pick up the poll and sit with someone on the phone for 10 minutes. Certain demographic groups are just more difficult to reach. And even though it's not a massive sample, I do want to talk about East Asians. East Asians, Chinese, Chinese voters, Koreans, Japanese, Canadians, they usually split towards the left. That they tend to be voting federal Liberal, federal NDP. This election, 44.9% going towards the Conservatives. South Asians, usually a little bit more towards the NDP and the Liberals, 32.8% going towards the Conservatives. Even that's a little bit too small of a sample for that community in my mind. And from just looking at what's happening on the ground, the Conservatives are doing very well very, very well in Surrey. I have no doubt that we're going to pick up the majority of Surrey right now from sheer momentum alone. I see some of these guys campaigning out there, like Hanver and Zishan, and they're walking around with like Roman legions of like 20 volunteers going down one street. That's just what Surrey politics is somewhat like, but you don't see something like that from the losing campaign. Maybe we're not going to pull up victories there. I kind of doubt it. White voters, this is where a lot of the battle is going to tend to be, just because, frankly, you get a lot of default white union voters from 30 years ago who have voted NDP for most of their life, and they might not change. I think a lot of them are saying NDP because they always say NDP on the phone. Once they enter the polling booth, I think you're going to have a lot more people going Conservative. Still 17% undecided. You do get more undecideds in other communities, although most of these are statistically insignificant, like seeing how few they actually polled. But now I just want to bring up the British Columbia chart, the British Columbia map that Main Street Research has put out. This is where the riding that David Eby is in is extremely close. I'm going to try and zoom in a little bit more for you guys here. This is Vancouver Point-Grey. They're predicting this race as 44.3% David Eby for the NDP, 43.7% for Paul Ranchford. That is less than 1% between the two of them. This is how tight the race is, and I guarantee if David Eby feels threatened this riding, he is going to try and pull in as many resources, as many volunteers into his jurisdiction and away from other NDP candidates. He has a massive ego. He will try and do something like that. Same thing with Jagmeet Singh, who's now flip-flopping all over the place on whether or not he will actually vote for a non-confidence vote, because obviously him ripping up the supply and confidence agreement was just a show. It didn't mean anything really. And so the thing that we have going on right now is that this is a referendum. This, in my mind, is going to be, it's a strange analogy, like the New Jersey off-year election for like governor and state house and whatnot. In New Jersey, there were candidates who only spent $200 US for the Republicans, and they beat the Democrat House Speaker, like statewide office, not like the federal. They beat the Senate Speaker for the state Senate, and he only spent $250. I think his opponent spent like $1 million or like $300,000. And it's because people, when they're sick of the current government, they'll just vote for whatever's the opposite. So right now, I think we're actually seeing polls understating how well the Conservatives are doing. And this happens all the time. And not to bore you guys to death, but I want to quickly show you what ended up happening in the Alberta provincial election with the pollsters. I like Main Street. I think they probably do the best job out of all the pollsters currently doing British Columbia. Many of these pollsters, like, let's talk about the most clownish pollster, Council, like Council Strategies or whatever it is, Council Public Affairs, I think it is. They put out a poll like 3 weeks ago that said that the BC NDP are up 8 points. I don't believe that for a second. And do you know why I don't believe that? Let's go over to when the Alberta election happened. Council Public Affairs down there showing just 4 days before the election, 5% Alberta NDP. It's an online poll. Online polls also tend to skew more left wing than right wing, because a lot of people who work as plumbers and farmers are not going to take an online poll in the middle of the day. Main Street is more accessible for people. It's an IVR poll. You pick up the phone, they say, who are you going to vote for? This person, that person, or whatever, and you just hit the buttons on your phone. It takes like 2 minutes to do their poll. Online polls can be far more tedious, so you get more people sitting around offices who are on lunch break, who are willing to fill in like polls all day long because they get like gift cards for Starbucks if they do enough of them. Council Public Affairs missed this election by 13.6%. The UCP in Alberta won by 8.6% over the Alberta NDP. And Council Public Affairs thought the Alberta NDP were going to win by 5 in terms of the popular vote. It was tight on seats in Calgary. But in terms of popular vote, this is what people are polling for. Even Abacus data, which usually shows the NDP are ahead by 1 or 2% in British Columbia, they thought the UCP was only up 1 point a day or two before the election. That's a 7.6% miss. A lot of these pollsters, even Main Street, technically missed. I think they got like a +2 for the UCP a couple days before. Other pollsters, Research Co. was a +4. It was the closest, but their previous poll was like 8 points off. A lot of these pollsters, I think, are missing the hidden conservative voter. They're not very loud about it. They know that certain parts of this province can be kind of left-wing, very progressive, and so they're not going to tell you right away what they believe on the issues, but they're going to vote conservative. And that's the biggest threat for David Eby. There's a hidden, silent majority voter out there who is going to show up to just get David Eby out of office, and they trust John Rustad. And David Eby is going to have a big problem trying to regain momentum when all he's signaling is flip-flopping and weakness. He is a radical progressive on the issues. Everybody knows that. And as he pretends not to be, he's only ticking off his own base and looking like he can't even stand by the things that he said 5 minutes ago. He was in favor of the carbon tax 5 minutes ago. He mocked Polyev for not being against it. Now he's going to strongly consider getting rid of the provincial carbon tax. And he's not even going to do it. He's just going to shift the consumer carbon tax even more onto producers and large businesses, which means everyone's still paying the carbon tax anyways. It's utter buffoonery. He's not actually going to pursue involuntary treatment for addicts. He's just saying it because the Conservatives said it, and he's in big trouble right now. There is a reason why I made that graphic. I don't think I have it on me right now, of David Eby wearing a BC Conservative hat. It's going to happen soon. He's going to have to stick on the BC Conservative hat because that's the only brand that's currently popular in British Columbia right now, is the Conservative Reform brand. Anyways, that should be it for me today, guys. If you live in British Columbia, please go and request a lawn sign on the BC Conservative website. I'm going to link that in the description below. Donate at least $100 to the BC Conservatives. They're at a massive money disadvantage because the BC NDP have given themselves $8 million of taxpayer money through these dumb election financing rules where they get most of their money back from the last election, and they get like $2 per vote they got in 2020 every single year. It's ridiculous. Conservatives get 200,000, they get 8 million. That's fair. And you can't even barely donate that much in BC, only up to $1,400, which is peanuts when you actually think of a provincial-wide election. You'd need like 1,000 people to give you that much money to even be in the conversation of being able to win the provincial election. But anyway, so donate $100, get a lawn sign, volunteer for a campaign, and this is very winnable for all of us. See you guys later.